Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live video. It's Sunday the 13th of July 2025. Oh, as we're working our way through July. Ooh, I'm so glad it's going by quickly. July and August are the worst in Phoenix, and we're in our monsoon season, which goes on till about the end of September. It starts around mid-June through the end of September. It's what we refer to as the rainy, dusty, wet, extreme rain, extreme wind, extreme dust period, where of course not every day, but when it happens, it's usually this time of year. Sometimes it runs a little late. We've certainly seen monsoons go as late as October, November. However, we'll see how it interferes potentially with next week's or this coming week's show schedule, because starting Wednesday and all throughout the rest of the week, there's a chance of some big storms here in Phoenix. So we'll see how that plays out with the show, and we'll do our best to just keep broadcasting live regardless. What else? Oh, for today's show, probably want to tell you about that. If I had done any amount of research on this case before I bought it, this Mini-ITX case from G.SKILL, the one thing I would have discovered is there's not anybody who reviewed it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, who liked it. And some for the same reasons, some for differing reasons, but I pretty much agree with everything overall. In addition, I have some more reasons that I didn't hear anybody mention, that until I started building it, that I realized, ooh, not a good case. And I mean, I'm glad to have done it, because I want to share with you the typical experience of a first-time builder who's perhaps doing too much at once, right? Start your first build, start that off real easy. Try and keep it in a budget and keep it simple. And then if you get some success, which you should, your greater chances of success, then move up your next build or upgrade from there. The problem is doing it the way that I've done it. What started off to be a simple budget build has become very expensive. So I'll give you an explanation. The concept behind this build was that it could be attractive and still fit within under an $800 budget. And that's why we went with the 9600X CPU. However, the power supply we ordered had to be replaced, and then replaced again along with a spare, which now has to be replaced again, because what we really need on this case is a modular power supply. So it started as a very inexpensive power supply, trying to stay cheap, right? Trying to spend the least amount of money, has now become 5 power supplies. Now, I could buy 2 pretty nice power supplies rather than 5 cheap ones without all the hassle and time involved. So the ES gaming power supply was bad. At least we thought it was, so we ordered another one. That one was bad too. So we ordered the Apevia and said, let's just get an extra Apevia, just so we have an SFX power supply here in the studio. And now the cables stick out too far, we can't close the lid. So that means getting a modular, do I have one around here? A modular SFX power supply, which means I don't need 2 Apevias anymore, so the spare one I bought gets returned, the ES gaming power supplies get returned, and the build just continues to wait. Now, I put a temporary cooler on here that I had in stock, because the CPU does not come with a cooler, this 9600X. And I thought, well, we'll just check just to make sure, and sure enough, yeah, that power, the power that the CPU has is just too great for the cooler to keep up with. So I found an older RGB AMD Spire Wraith something, I don't know, RGB cooler. I thought it looked pretty neat on here. I didn't want to put too much RGB in it. And the cooler's too tall and the glass won't close. So I'm looking at the marketing photos and I say, well, let's just get the G.SKILL cooler. You see how this keeps getting more and more expensive. Now we're ramping up to $1,100, $1,200. G.SKILL doesn't make this cooler anymore. We found it on eBay, and we found the marketing photos are lying. The marketing photos show this cooler installed in a way that's not possible on any motherboard. So that's not a big deal, but what is a big deal is when I turn it on and I hear basically air bubbles in the system. That one of the downsides of buying an older cooler is that the liquid inside may have evaporated or thickened up. Now, the good news is it works great. It does a wonderful job keeping everything cool. But the fitment in this case is so tight, and one of the screws is stripped out from the back of the radiator because it wasn't a brand new cooler. They don't make them anymore. I was trying to fit a theme. And the theme initially was budget. Okay. So now I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I just see this through? Just be stubborn about it? And I really thought about it a lot, and I appreciate everybody's suggestion for cases. Many of them we've already done, or variations where they're so close to the same as what we've already done. I really wanted something different. So I started looking around and found the, is it a Thermaltake TR100 or something? And I want to do something different, so I want to use, I want the case to be more practical. Because what I was thinking is, if I see this through, if I say, well, you know, the cooler's good enough, and I'm not going to be able to return that cooler, I'm stuck with it. You know, it's not the eBay seller's fault. They did everything they said they were going to do. It's on me. It works, but it's a little noisy. Lessons learned. I'm trying to save money, trying to do this on a budget, and it just got more and more and more expensive. If I would have bought just midline quality parts, all from Amazon, let's say, this would have cost me less money. It would have been done in 2 weeks. I would have done the motherboard prep, then the case build, we'd be done. On the other hand, we wouldn't have learned anything, right? So the good side of this is we get to see a real life experience that's very, very common in the building community that not many people want to admit to. People are usually embarrassed by their mistakes, which I find to be embarrassing. If you can't own up to your mistake, and if you're not willing to share your misunderstanding or the mistakes you made with other people, then you're encouraging ignorance and you're refusing to share helping other people because you're too self-involved to think that it makes you look dumb. I have no problem appearing to look dumb. The reason I can say that with confidence is that self-acknowledgement proves you're not dumb. If you're self-aware of it, that you can say with pride, I screwed this up and let me explain to you why. You could say, I was dumb, but I'm not anymore. You understand? So long as you don't tell anybody, then you're not helping people, and they're going to make those same mistakes you made because no one helped you. Nobody was honest and said, hey, if you're going to build a computer, watch out for the cheap stuff. And you know, maybe if you're working with a case that's Mini-ITX, know those are always going to be more difficult. They're always going to be more expensive. They're always going to be tighter and more confined, with few exceptions, and you're always going to have heat-related struggles, especially if you add a graphics card to this. You often have to trade one thing for another to get everything to fit, to get what you want or what you can have into a Mini-ITX case overall. Now, my question was, what do I do with this now? Because at the end of the day, with those Wi-Fi antennas being up under here, and then you have to buy a Wi-Fi extending unit, so there's more money. Everything is more money, more money, more money. Well, then I think about how much could I have bought for what this is costing me, and how much could have already been done if I wouldn't have tried to do this on a budget. If I would have just increased the budget a little bit, this would already be done. I wouldn't have had all these frustrations. So, pick a better ITX case that meets what I need it to do. But I want something different. What I've decided to do is go with a matcha green themed case. So a matcha green Thermaltake cooler that fits the matcha green Thermaltake case, that fits the, what's the third part? Oh, there's a little Thermaltake screen. It's like $90. It's optional. You know what? For the amount of money I'm saving, all of a sudden the $90 doesn't seem like such a big deal. Let's put the screen on it just to give it that little bit of pizzazz. Okay, then the next question I ask myself is, that solves this problem, but what am I going to do with it? So I start thinking about that, and I go, well, what could I do with it? Like, this was just a budget channel build. It was cheap. The idea was it would go sit on the shelf. Who cares? But now I'm reinvesting, you know, another $100 on a cooler, $100 on a case, let's say $100 on that screen. We get $300 more into it. I'll return this case. I'll get a full refund. I'll turn all those 4 power supplies back in. I'll get a full refund. I'll keep the modular power supply I just bought, put that in the thermal take. Well, now this thermal take sounded like a really nice little Mini-ITX build. It'd be a shame to let it sit on a shelf. What would I need for me to use it as my new birthday build? Because I don't think I did a birthday build, and replace the big streamer. Well, that motherboard will hold a 9950X3D CPU, and that cooler will cool it. But then that means the budget NVMe drive that we put in here will need to come out, and I'll put something, what I need in there, which will be at least a 2 terabyte. And our friends at Orico sent me their industrial 2 terabyte drive, and we'll put that in there. I also need at least 64 gigs of RAM, preferably, because what I need is 1 slot to put my 4-port 4K capture card in. I would also like a second slot because I have a U.2 NVMe server grade class 8 terabyte drive in an adapter card on the big streamer that I'm moving my video files to. But now that we have these NASs, I really don't need that anymore. I mean, I'd like it. Don't get me wrong, I'd like it. But, you know, time for change. And with that little Mini-ITX build, when it's done, I can edit video on it, stream on it, and I can have it sitting right up here on the desk. It won't take up much room. And we've gone to the exact opposite of what I was trying to create. I was trying to create a budget build, and now the CPU that I put in there is $700. Okay, so just the 9950, the Ryzen 9 9950X3D is the single most expensive high-end consumer-based CPU AMD sells. I'm so frustrated with the budget. Let's go the other way. So that means today I need to get this case back to the way it was so I can send it back to Amazon. Thank goodness I saved the box. So we're going to take the radiator out. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I haven't decided because the noise. It works fine. I don't like the noise. We're going to take the motherboard out, and we're going to take the NVMe drive, and we're going to take the RAM out because that's budget RAM and budget NVMe. And now we're going to build a high-end mini PC, high-end ITX system. I'm hoping we'll have the CPU in by Friday. I don't know. There's a delay on it. We'll have the case, the power supply, the cooler, and the screen. We should have that in tomorrow at some point. And then we'll retire the big red and black computer that, if you recall from Studio B, it's the big Gamdius. And now we'll go with something much smaller, more compact. And I'll sacrifice my internal 8 terabyte U.2 drive, and we'll utilize it somewhere else. It'll just, you know, it's not going to go bad sitting there. And thankfully, I just recently emptied it anyway, right? I put everything over onto the NAS. And that's going to be my new system anyway. Just a dedicated NAS for nothing but YouTube videos. So as long as I have a 2 terabyte or even a 4 terabyte drive, it doesn't matter. Once that gets like a terabyte of videos on it, which are these live streams that I'm recording, I'll just move them over the network, over to the NAS. And I don't really need that 8 terabyte drive. So I'm constantly shifting and adapting to the way that the times are changing, right? What are we needing for the kind of work we're doing, the space we have, and the funding we have. So with the funding that you guys have so generously contributed to the channel, I'm thinking, how can this be more than just a build? How can we use this indefinitely on the channel, get more use out of more mileage out of it? And I thought, well, we'll use it as the streamer. And we'll show you don't need a lot to stream. And in this case, it actually is quite a bit. You don't need to have a big fish tank RGB case for it. And I love the Gamdius case. And I love the Fantex Evolve streaming case before that. And I still have the original Threadripper community build over at Studio A that still works perfectly today. There's no reason that we have to do these upgrades. But what I am trying to do is say, if I had to start all over again, would I build that Threadripper from 6 or 8 years ago? No, because it's 6 or 8 years old. Would I build this AMD case that's a 7850 X3D? You know what? It's a really nice computer, even by today's standards, but it's big, it's heavy. That's why you don't see it on the channel anymore. So could I build something even better that's 1/3 the size and the same or better power? Yes, I can. So that's what this has become. It is morphed entirely into a different project. Essentially, the only thing we're carrying over from here is the motherboard. That's it. We'll keep the 9600X for a future budget build, probably for like a regular ATX or micro ATX build with a budget board. We might even use the same board, quite frankly. We'll make sure that we have the latest BIOS on this board so that when we switch the CPU over, we're not going to have any compatibility issues. So that's the benefit also of having a spare CPU on hand. And like I said, I've already got the modular ATX power supply. I will keep one of the Apevias as a spare. So this one that we're taking out today, we're going to keep that one on the shelf in case we have a need for another SFX power supply in the future. I usually have several spare parts of everything here, and I just don't have any spares. And that ES Gaming didn't work. Neither one of those power supplies worked, so I'm not going to keep those as spares. The case will go back to Amazon, and we're going to start over again, only with a completely different mission. And good riddance to this case. And again, I don't know what I'll do with the cooler yet, but again, the noise on it and the way it's designed, the fact that the dial on it, the text won't rotate. I don't know what they were thinking. You can only put that cooler in one way, and if the text winds up upside down, too bad. And if the reason you're buying it with the RGB is so you can look at it, who wants to look at it upside down or sideways? What's the point? You might as well just cover it up with something. It would look better covered up. But then when you add the fact that it's having a noise, I think of that like a death rattle. What that means is something is not right. Now, the severity of that, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that its life is reduced because of it. I can't say when, and I can't say exactly how, but I can tell you that because it's making that noise, it will die sooner than one that's not making that noise. Could be years, could be weeks, I don't know, but for that kind of money and time and effort, why bother? So I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the cooler, but I thought today we'll just start taking this thing apart, and we'll take it as a lesson learned and something to consider, especially, and I can't emphasize this enough, if you're looking to build a Mini-ITX system. This is some unique build challenges, and almost every Mini-ITX system will present you with these challenges. When this one is all said and done, if I had finished it, I've been scratching up the Lazy Susan trying to tip this on its side to get things plugged in and out of it. And I'm just like, there's no way. The idea that I have to get up under it, if I would have noticed that on day one, I would not have ordered it. But I didn't pay attention. I just was looking at the case. I said, hey, that's cool. We haven't done anything like that before. And it's so impractical and so difficult and limiting and restrictive to no benefit. Like if it was limiting and restrictive, but in return for that, there was some positive thing other than the aesthetic, it might be worth it, right, to have some convenience. But there's no convenience in this. It's not exactly cheap. It wasn't expensive, but it wasn't cheap. And when it's all said and done, it'll always be something you curse at every time you've got to plug a USB device into it there underneath, or try and get your Wi-Fi antennas to get any signal. Just a terrible, 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 terrible design. But ask me how I really feel. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see y'all joining us. Let's say hello to who we've got here. We got David Graham saying hello, Eddie Casanova, Eugene Hidalgo, and Dwayne Blackwelder join us, along with Ben Laird. Dwayne renews membership. Yeah, we're a member for 32 months. Thank you, Dwayne. This is Hello Chat. Hope everyone's having a great day. Well, back at you, my friend. 3D Everything and Richard DeFries say hello, along with Jose Lopez and Thomas MacT. Andy W6AD says good day. Welcome in, Andy. There's Gregory Howard saying hello, now also renewing membership, now a member for 22 months, says hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in chat. God bless all of you this day. Again, thank you, and back at you, my friend. Good to see you. Thank you for renewing your membership. Bajan Guy joins us along with Frank Jimmy saying hello. Mark Baggett and Mark Gaines. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland there. And Jim Kenny says hello, as does Essential Working Too Hard and Taffer9876. Of course, Marlena joining us, our channel administrator, hanging out in the chat today. And she's the one who does all the work behind the scenes, thumbnails, video description, working with potential companies for reviewing products. This is why I'm not reviewing socks and a gaming chair. If I see another one of those emails, I swear. But Mara takes care of that, so I don't have to look at that stuff anymore. I don't see any comments about my plans on this. Nobody's saying it's a terrible idea. Nobody's saying it's a good idea either. Nobody's saying a thing about it. Shout out to our friend Buster. Buster sends us a Amazon gift card prior to the show, and we certainly appreciate that as always, and more importantly, your friendship. So shout out to our good friend Buster. Let me take a quick look here just to make sure I'm not missing anything. The lights seem dim in here today. Is it just me, or does this video seem darker than normal? I think that catches us up. So, disassembly time. This doesn't happen to me very often, but if it does happen, you'll probably see it more often on a Mini-ITX build than any other. You will see me struggle more with Mini-ITX builds. Even mini PCs aren't this difficult. Mini PCs, all the work's done for you, you know? So for some people, that's not good. For some people, they don't want all the work to be done for them. They can't help but, if the work is already done, take it apart anyway because they're just bored or curious. It's a great way to rid yourself of a good computer. Oh, there was something I wanted to mention. There is a YouTube video up, and I shared it on my Twitter feed. And it shows the Beelink factory, how they make mini PCs. So if I jump over here and turn on my screen share, or my window capture, is that gonna work? There it is. This video right here, inside China's mini PC production. I had no idea. By the way, this is 22 minutes long, and it's not narrated. I had no idea just how much work goes into making the cases. And we can skip around in here and you'll see all the testing that's done and all the different stations it goes through. And, you know, just stamping the case out, and then all the polishing that has to be done to get that shiny metal case. This will give you, there's the anodization process where you dip them into the color that attaches to the metal, and if there's any imperfections in the metal, the color won't stick, and you'll always have this mismatched area. And the way the anodization works is they'll hit it with electricity, and then they polish it after that. I mean, or they have to polish it before it goes into anodization, and you'll see the sparks when these things, when the anodization process is activated, you'll see sparks. Electricity is involved in it. Anyway, highly recommend you check out this video, and we'll see if we can have Mara add a link to that because it is absolutely fantastic. I got a lot of respect for the amount of effort and time it goes into making just one of these mini PCs. I had no idea. I thought it just went through. There's a lot of circuit boards and things that are just put into by machines. And there's still a lot they're doing by hand at Beelink, which is just amazing. Yeah. And I've got email. All right, thank you. So anyway, I almost forgot to mention that because I can't believe just the case manufacturing alone. Boy, that's very labor intensive. And an email comes from Ben Laird with a $10 Amazon gift card. And Ben says, well, I hope you enjoy this Amazon gift card. Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you for supporting us here. As always, we appreciate you, my friend. Ben and Buster join us from Scotland. We have a couple other viewers from Scotland as well. So, yeah, thank you very much. Gregory Howard said this is a good idea. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Greg. Your flattery will get you everywhere. All right. Is that all I wanted to talk about? Oh, there was something else that's not coming to me at the moment, but that's okay. It'll eventually get there. Now, since I'm doing a disassembly, it doesn't require a lot of focus and attention. I'm really good at taking things apart. That's a specialty. So if you have questions, unrelated questions, feel free to ask. And I'll do my best to provide an answer or a link for you. And I realize, you know, that internal U.2 NVMe drive I've got, that 8 terabyte drive I'm using as a local video backup. I could just get a USB enclosure for it, but I'll be honest, I think I'd just rather use the NAS. We've got a 10 gig network here, and even though, you know, using the Wi-Fi mesh point we've got, it's limiting us to 2.5 gig. I know, it's so sad. I don't mind. If it's going to take 20 minutes to copy a terabyte of data, what do I care? So you say copy, paste, and you know, it's not like you have to sit there. It's not the old days. You can continue to use the computer. Just do what you were going to do next. Or go do something else. Let it run. Go watch TV. Go cook dinner. Go shopping. Come back. It'll wait for you. 20 minutes isn't that long anyway. But who cares? If I was able to go 4 times faster, it only took 5 minutes. I'm still not going to stand there looking at the screen for 5 minutes. With multitasking, you set it to do something and then do the next thing. Open up Word and write your document. Browse the web, pay your bills, open your email. Computer can handle all that at the same time. So the speed isn't really all that important to me personally. Even if I was connected at gigabit, what do I care? Even if I was connected over the internet and it was going to run all night, what do I care? It's not like that's all it can do. You continue to use the computer as you normally would and just leave the darn thing on when you go to bed. When you wake up in the morning, it'll be done. I got to do that every time I build up, let's say, a terabyte. And if each video is, say, I don't know, 100, 200 gigs in size, say about 100 gigs in size, 150. How many videos would I have to make before I get to a terabyte of backup use? A lot. Several, you know, at least 6 months, I want to say, of these videos that run 2 and 3 hours long. So it's not like I'm running it every day. So I think I can live without the U.2 card. It just makes me a little sad because I like it. It's convenient. But we only have one slot, and I have to have the video capture card. I don't have a choice. I do not have to have the U.2 card. And again, that can turn up in something else. In fact, several of the mini Sporum workstations we've got will accept that U.2 card inside of them. Like the MSO1 and the MSA2. Oh. Ooh. See, on those are really powerful workstations, but there's no way for me to plug a 4-port HDMI 4K capture card in them. They're too small. This gives me ideas. All right, so where do I want to start with this? I guess we're going to just take the power supply out because it's adding a lot of mess, a lot of tangled mess. And we'll keep this as a spare. The spare that we bought, we're just going to return it. We don't need it. because this will be our spare. I don't need two spares. It's not like I do this that often. If I use the spare, then I'll order another spare. Until then, it can sit on the shelf, and that way we've got one so we're not stuck back in the position I was in when I started this build, thinking I had one here and I didn't. I was also able to find a modular power supply that wasn't $90. That was small form factor. It was actually about only $10 more than this Apevia. And had I seen it before, I probably would have bought it. So these run about 50 bucks. And the one we bought is a Game Max. And I think those are fine. And it was like $59? 49 or 59? I think it was $59. 80 plus certified. And I forget the wattage on it. But you're going to see it when we move this into the Thermaltake case. You'll see that power supply. So it was a few dollars more, but I feel like it gave us a lot more, from the modular cables to the added wattage to the 80 plus certification. And so for this build, you know, that we're going to be using a 9950 X3D chip in, we definitely don't want to go budget on the power supply on this. On the other hand, I could still get a name brand power supply like Seasonic to put in there just to say, but we're not putting a GPU in there. Like the one slot we've got, I need to use it for the video capture card. So overall, I think as long as we have 500 watts, we're going to be just fine. Anything above and beyond that is better. But if you go too far above beyond that, then it gets expensive for no reason. So that's why it was the perfect sweet spot. And we'll use it every day as the streamer. So we'll find out if these Game Max power supplies are any good. We did use, I think, a Game Max power supply in our first Gamdius build that we did back at Studio A many, many years ago. As far as I know, that power supply still works today. So, yeah, if I didn't think it was going to work, I wouldn't have bought it. All right, I got other things to do than just sit there and find products to be upset at. If that happens naturally, I won't fight it. But I'm not going to go looking for a fight. Now, of course, anytime we're taking things apart, using an electric screwdriver is completely safe. And working black on black, black screws and black bracket holding up a black power supply in the black case against a black motherboard tray, and it's all dark inside of there. Prepare to provide yourself a flashlight or enough light that you'll be able to see. And everything is going to be a tight fit. And I cannot stress that enough. The only Mini-ITX case I worked on that wasn't a tight fit, I'd say the N-Case M1 was pretty easy to work on. Everything was still a tight fit, but at least it was easy to basically break it down piece by piece so that you could get wherever you needed to get. And then I'd say the Thermaltake Tower 100, which is one of the, if not the largest Mini-ITX case I've ever seen. And that was super easy to work on. But they have a lid. All your I/O is at the top. It's the opposite of this case. And then there's a plastic lid, and you have to remove the plastic lid to plug anything into the I/O. I have it sitting over here, and it's a beautiful case, but it's something you want to set up once. If you're somebody like me that you're always wanting to get to the back of the I/O, it's not ideal. Thankfully, most people aren't like me, right? All right, this should be the last screw here. Okay. So I'm going to leave this out for a second until I get the liquid cooler, because to get the radiator out with this bracket in is a little bit tight, and I don't want to work that hard. This becomes our new spare, but I want to save the power supply screws. So I'll take one of the little baggies that we've used in the past. I don't need one that big. Do we have a small one? Here we go. So I'm going to show you my system. We don't need to save the box. I don't need to save, we will need the power cable, which should be in the box. And we'll keep it all together on a shelf, just like this, the 4 power supply screws. This will sit on the shelf, and we'll grab some cellophane tape, Scotch tape. There. And this is all for the cooler. Keep all that together. We'll put that in a bigger Ziploc bag if we're going to keep the cooler. Here's our power cable. So these 3 things, right, the screws, the power supply, and the power cable, these are going to go on the parts shelf for a rainy day. We'll call it a rainy day. So I'm going to just set this right over here for now, just to get it off the bench. And now that's everything we need when we need it again. I'm not going to go looking for screws. I'm not going to go looking for a power cable. Thinking ahead. Then I have to put it somewhere where I can find it. Now I already have a place for power supplies, so I'll keep it with the rest of the power supplies. And my eyes can tell me which one is a small form factor. I don't need to have a special designation for it. I can look at it and see. So long as it's with all the other power supplies, it won't be a problem finding it. Now with regards to getting the radiator out, I suppose we can remove all of the front port umbilicals here because that's just all in our way, potentially. So let's just get it out of the way. And we can even, right now, keep this out of the way since we're not going to, we're returning the case, we're not going to use it. We'll just put the little wire ties right back on it like it was when it was new. And that also helps keep the cables from getting in our way when we're working. This here, this is the the ARGB. Remember, I kept the little cap for the pins, just in case something like this were to happen. Not that it's entirely necessary, but I'd very much like to return it the same way I got it. And I would hate for the next owner to not know that those are supposed to be covered up, and then they end up plugging this in. They get voltage to this that hits the metal on the case. Things short out. And it's really their fault, but you know, they're not going to be happy about it. So I keep stuff like this exactly for this occasion, because this does happen. And sometimes it's not me that does it. Sometimes it's the end user, the person that ends up buying it or getting the machine. They're the ones that end up with the problem. So I want to give them every advantage to do it all right and not have these problems. Now, when I take this water pump off, remember we've got the screw and the washer. Where'd the washer go? Be a little more careful on this one. Screw, washer. Okay, there's our pump. And I need to take these brackets off. So what I want to do is I want to keep these screws that go onto the pump in their own little bag, just like they came out of the package. I would say, as much as possible, hold on to all your packaging until your return period is expired. So with Amazon, it's 30 days. Don't be so eager to get the trash out, and then you end up needing to send something back. Nobody typically expects to send anything back. What's interesting is it doesn't even look like this cooler was sitting all the way down. Well, yeah, I guess it was. It's pretty clean under there. The problem is the top of the CPU seems really clean, and the bottom of this seems really clean, and it was working really well. So where did the thermal compound go? Where did it go? Because remember, it was all in a big circle. I guess there's a very thin layer of it on the CPU there. Can I go to the other camera? That's a little freaky. Now you see how that's hitting the bench, and you see how that just left thermal compound all over my Lazy Susan? This, whoops, go back to camera one. That is the thing that's really annoying. So before that gets any worse, I know I have some paper towels around here somewhere. Let me grab a couple paper towels, and we'll stop this before it gets worse. Now this is brand new thermal compound, so it's just going to wipe up like wet paint. If your thermal compound is a few years old, you might have to kind of rub at it a little bit to get it off, but with paper towels, that's how I would take the bulk of it. And I wouldn't worry about cleaning it with isopropyl alcohol until I was ready to reuse it on something. So this is a good enough cleaning for removal and storage. And then we get a better thorough cleaning with the isopropyl alcohol when we redeploy it, if and when that day ever comes. Then we do the final polishing. But there's no sense polishing it now. I just don't want this to get all over the, you know, if we end up keeping this, I don't want this to get all over wherever I set it, like here, for example. And this can be a real pain to get this stuff up. We got lucky. That one came up pretty clean. Top of the CPU too. Again, the CPU is going to go onto our storage area as inventory for a future build. And this is a budget build CPU. Okay, so that doesn't change anything. It's just we're not doing a budget build anymore. There's that one. And again, all we're doing is trying to get the bulk of it off, whatever you can see. All the stuff you can't see, little crevices and corners, we'll take care of that when we polish it the next time we go to put it into another machine, which, you know, won't be that long. But we'll do a budget build that'll be more user-friendly for our first-time builder-friendly than this was. I'm still missing a little washer. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'm going to keep these screws separate. This is for the pump. And again, the instructions show a picture of the screws and where they go. The brackets need to come off. And the problem I'm going to have when I take these brackets off is the back plate will just fall off the back of the board. So for that reason, I need to put the original plastic retention, I forget what these are called, back on the board the way it came. So that means we got to remove these spacers. And once again, we're going to grab a small plastic bag and we're going to separate these screws out. So if anybody goes to use this cooler again, we're not just dumping everything in one big bag and saying, good luck. I hate when manufacturers do that. So all these things go together. Okay, and that's half of it. And now, even though it's probably more than likely when we move this board into the new case and we use the new Thermaltake cooler, these will come back off. But in the meantime, I don't have to worry about losing that rear I/O bracket, or not I/O bracket, but CPU bracket. So we'll just put these right back on. Now the reason I'm putting one on at a time is the other bracket here is holding that the rear bracket in place. And then when I take that one off, this plastic bracket I'm putting back on will again hold it in place. I don't want to lose that. You can easily get replacements on Amazon, but anything that interferes with our build progress is going to be frustrating. Oh, and then we had the fan splitter. Remember this whole fiasco? There was more money. There's another $12 in a fan splitter because the cooler didn't come with one and the motherboard doesn't have a space to put it. So this was really, you know, $10 here, $12 there, $30 here. It was nickel and diming us. And if you're going to put all those nickels and dimes together, you could have bought something better to begin with without all the hassle. Now these little plastic brackets, they're so easy to put on and take off. I figure we might as well just go ahead and put them back on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this little plastic bag, the Ziploc bag, in the motherboard box so that when we go to do this build next Friday, I hope, we'll take the CPU out at that time. I'm leaving the CPU in here to protect the pins. So when we're ready and we have everything for the new build, this motherboard will be ready to go. We're going to take the NVMe and the RAM out of it because that's just not big enough for what I want to do. And we'll set those aside to also be reused on a budget build. You see what I'm doing? You see where I'm coming from? And we'll put a new NVMe drive in and new RAM in. And when it comes time to put in the CPU, then we'll take the CPU out. That way we're not potentially damaging any of the pins, and we don't worry about losing, oh, what did I do with the CPU? You know what I'm saying? Okay, so that's the worst of it right there. This little fan splitter, I had that over here for some reason. I'm gonna just put it back where it was. I don't know why I put it there, but that turned out to be useful. Now we have this little bag here, which is part of the washers and screws that went with the cooler, with the radiator. So we're gonna take the screws that are holding the radiator in out, and I'm gonna start by taking out everything but the opposite corners. So I'm gonna leave this top right corner in, and I'm going to leave the bottom left corner in. I'm going to take out everything else. That way the radiator doesn't just fall out. Think ahead. Comes apart a lot easier, doesn't it? And then I'm going to go ahead, before my table gets too cluttered, keep it all organized. Everything's together. So even if it's me being the next one that reuses this cooler, separate bags for separate components of the build keeps things so much easier. So finally I can take out the last two screws that are holding the radiator in, right? Because right now that radiator is not budging. So we'll start here. Notice the case is on its side. If the case is upright, then the radiator is going to fall. Think about stuff like that when you're building, and you can avoid little minor catastrophes and heart attacks when things fall. Now this whole thing should just lift right on out. I don't need to take the fans off. The fans can stay on. And depending on if we reuse this or not, the worst case scenario is that would go in the other way, and we'd want these power cables to come out the other side, and we'd rotate the fans. Or even if we wanted, well, we could never move the fans to the other. Well, that's not true. We have the option of moving the fans, but by keeping the fans attached to the radiator, we have the screws, we have everything already done. Potentially, we can just slap it right back in, and if it needs to be adjusted in any way, we're not looking for parts. So that's easy enough to do. So that's the rest of the radiator, and I'm going to just set it where? I'll set it over here for now. Okay. So that's what our build looks like currently. The rest of these screws go in here, and I am intentionally leaving everything for the cooler in this little pile right here. This is all cooler stuff. So that means if we switch to an Intel cooler or an Intel CPU, we have all the brackets if we want to repurpose that cooler. Who knows what's going to come in? We could have a repair come in. Somebody says, hey, I don't have any money. Can you help me out? I need a cooler. We've got all the brackets regardless of what they have, and it's no longer about the aesthetic. Now it's about what can we do to help the customer quickly. You know, we've got it. We don't want it. It's here in inventory. It provides them a solution to a problem they have. Everybody's happy. But if I go to do that and I'm missing one screw, what a waste of time. I have to tear everything back open again. So, organized piles. All right, now we can take the board out. The board's fantastic and the CPU is fantastic. In fact, I'm real happy with everything on this board. Even this RAM, it's budget RAM, but it's fantastic. This OLOy RAM is absolutely fantastic. When you consider how much this costs for what you're getting, it's a great value. I'd also have to say the Orico red line is also a great value. They sent us some of that we used in a build a while ago. And it's a great, I'd put it right up there with this as far as value goes. It's really good RAM. Let's see. I think I'll leave the NVMe drive in it for now because of the thermal tape. I'll wait until we do the build on Friday. I'm hoping it'll be Friday. And when I have the new NVMe, I'll take this NVMe out. This RAM will go back on inventory. It's great budget RAM if you want RGB. And then the NVMe drive is would be used an S880 1 terabyte from Fanxiang. I mean, I can't get enough of those drives. They're great. Orico sent us their industrial rated NVMe drive, and I think we're going to use it on this motherboard. It's 2 terabytes. And it offers what appears to be 7,450 megabytes per second on Gen 4 for a little over $100. It sounds too good to be true. So we'll check it out when we do the build on Friday. So I think that's about all we can do with the board today, other than just removing it out of this case. And then I can put the case back in its wrapper, pack it back up in the box, take it over to Kohl's so that Amazon will take it back. I don't have to put it in a shipping box. I just need to put it back in the G.SKILL box. I'll tape it up so nothing falls out. Nobody can claim I didn't return everything, because who knows how it's handled. I don't trust them to tape it up. So I will tape it up to make sure it's done right. Just the lid to the box, and then I'll take it to Kohl's. I'll make sure I get a receipt, and then likely we'll get my refund. And that refund for the case and for those power supplies helps absorb some of the cost of this massive upgrade. Like I said, the CPU alone that we're going to use is over $700 after sales tax. I forgot to take off our little riser cable here. That was another problem with this build, is this riser cable is only Gen 3. So if you put a nice high-end graphics card in here, you won't be able to utilize its full performance because the case riser, included riser with the case, doesn't accommodate those speeds. Even when this case was released 4 years ago, Gen 4 was already out. I don't know what they were thinking. Okay, so this went, where did this, everything's backwards. This went up here, didn't it? Now, these little motherboard screws, we should have a bag in here. And if we don't, if they didn't give us any more than just those 4, let's see. We might have only gotten those 4. Well, those go with the case. Somewhere in here I should have a bag. Yeah, this would be everything for the case. Apevia. We don't need that. We're not going to use it, but we are going to keep it as a spare, so I don't need to. Okay, so the GSkill case. This is for the motherboard. This is for the motherboard. We're going to keep all that together. Okay, this is what we're putting the brackets back on when we're done. This is all ASRock labeled. This has got to be for the case, so that should be in this bigger bag. Wi-Fi antennas go to the motherboard, CPU, sticker, SATA cables, all that stays with the motherboard. M.2 screws stay with the motherboard. Okay, good to go. So what I want to do is, I notice in this bag here These are all shoulder screws. These are for putting in like 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drives. That's what those grommets are for. In order to keep life as simple as possible, since I'm returning this, and again, to help the next person out, I'm going to grab another little bag here. Not that I have to, it's just the way I am. And separate out those motherboard screws so they don't have to dig for them in the other bag. We have 4 of those because it's Mini-ITX only. You'll never need more than 4 on this case. And we'll put that in the bag, and just so we know what this is for, we'll put the directions right in there. And now we know everything in this bag goes with this case. You couldn't make it any easier. It's a self-label right there. That's everything we need. Then as far as these screws go, these are for the power supply bracket, and we'll put those back in here real quick. As for these cables, these can just go down in here like so. And if we want to keep this from banging around inside of the case when it's shipping, we can just grab a small wire tie and just attach it to something secure, preferably closest to the edge or up along one of these little holes here, so we can also not interfere with the glass door closing. And that should hold it. What we don't want to have happen, not that it's our problem, but I do my best to return it back to the store in the same way that I received it. So I don't necessarily memorize how everything was packed, but I do know what I would need if I bought this used, what I would be expecting. Now we can put the glass panels back on, which I've left the plastic on. So these just slide over the posts like so. And we'll close that side. Now it is going to be a little top heavy here. And then we'll grab the other side right here. Another good reason to save the peel. Not that they would resist your return. It's just very thoughtful for the next person. It's just common courtesy, right? So once you know for a fact you're going to keep everything, it's all built, it's all working, you're happy with it. At that point, if you want to, do the peel, not that you can't return it. You still can return it after that. It's somebody else's problem. I just think it's kind of being a jerk. Okay. So that pretty much returns it back to the way we received it. Everything here is for the liquid cooler. This goes with the case. That'll go back in the box. I'm going to set this on top of here, put it away somewhere safe. And then all of these brackets are all strictly for the cooler and the cooler alone. And what I would do for that is grab a bigger Ziploc bag, something that can hold all of this, right? Because that's a pretty big bag. And this will all go into one bag. And I will grab either grab a marker or just be sure that I can see this on the outside of the bag. Then I know what's in that bag and keep that bag close to that cooler. And anytime we want to reuse that cooler, should we want to, we have everything we need for any CPU right there. That'll cover it. And you know what? I still have the thermal compound. We'll give that back too. Or not give it back. We'll hold on to it so that if we reapply it, we'll keep it all together as though it were brand new again. That way I can throw away the box. I'm not returning that back to the seller on eBay. the cost of shipping or going through the hassle for a $60 cooler is not worth my time. And like I said, if somebody is in a desperate situation and they're willing to take a cooler that works well but might be a little bit noisy, then we're actually going to help somebody out rather than rip somebody off. So it's not up to my standard, but that's assuming I'm dealing with people that want a warranty and paying the regular price. If we're helping somebody out for that reason, I'll keep it for that reason. And after a while, if I'm tired of looking at it after a couple of years, it'll probably just go in the recycle bin. So we'll see how that plays out over time. But that's how we build inventory here in the shop. And what ends up happening, especially with liquid coolers, if you let them sit for too long, even if you never used them, you might find using them as a waste of your time. You'll end up putting it in, the liquid evaporates, the pump starts to fail, even though you haven't used it. And then you end up taking it all back apart, and all that's lost labor and time because you were too cheap to throw it away. Things to keep in mind that you won't have a problem with on an air cooler. All right, let's see what I'm missing in the chat. That's all. This assembles a lot faster than it went together, doesn't it? What a difference. I'm glad to have had the experience. You don't know what you don't know. And so now we know it together. Bajan Guy wants to know, could you have used an Intel motherboard with an Intel i5 CPU using an Intel stock cooler in the G.SKILL case? I don't know because of the height of the cooler. That's when this door closes, I think the maximum height of cooler on this case, was it 130 millimeter? No, I don't think it's even 130. If we go to Amazon and take a look, Amazon, and we'll take a look at the G.SKILL. Just going to type in ITX case. They only make one. I don't need to type the. There it is. They will often tell you what the cooler height is. So if we look at this page together, if I come over here and go to my window capture, we can see here it says it supports up to a 280 millimeter radiator and a GPU up to 330 millimeters in length, but that's assuming you're not putting a drive in there, 3.5-inch drive, because then it won't be able to do that. How about if we do this, because I don't see, we'll copy that and put it up here in our search. Max cooler height. Oops. I guess I'm going to type it G.SKILL Z5i. Let's see what Google says. 70 millimeters. I mean, that's 7 centimeters for Americans. That means if you're using an air cooler, it must be 70 millimeters tall or less. So then the question is, how tall is the stock Intel cooler? Depends on which stock Intel cooler. Well, on an i5, for which i5? You're talking about the i5 10th gen, 11th gen, 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen, or Ultra 5. They're different. Some of them are different. So if we look at, let's go back to Amazon again, and let's look at, hold on, what am I going to look for? Oh, 70 millimeter cooler. Let's do that. 70 millimeter cooler. So this Cooler Master is 70 millimeters tall. That will just fit. Now I did see Thermalright had some low profile coolers, and one I was considering, don't worry about my typos, we'll get there, was this copper one. Because it looks really cool, but it doesn't match the case. I don't want orange and rust in a black case. But this all copper design, it looks really neat in a really thin fan, and its total height. So 92 millimeters is the width of this fan That's not the height of the cooler. So the fan is 92 millimeters square, or yeah, 92 millimeters along each side. And the 53 millimeters is the height. So this would give us plenty of space left over. But then the question is that enough to keep that i5 cool? Well, it depends which i5. Also, you have to screw this in from behind the board. And that's not convenient. And apparently they even enclose a bracket that many people say, at least on AMD systems, keep it out, don't use it. And as far as how tight do you make the screws, Thermalright says just tighten them till they feel right. They put the right in Thermalright. There's no stop to those screws. Apparently they'll just keep tightening and tightening until you crush your motherboard, and that was one of the complaints I read on the reviews. It looks like it's really well made, all copper. I mean, I'm assuming that's not just copper plated, but it's real copper. That'd be an interesting test for somebody to do. And so that would hopefully cool better, but it's ugly. I think if I was going to build like a steampunk looking thing that had a bunch of copper components, this would look really neat. But as the single and only color of copper on the board, that's usually black or white, this doesn't make any sense to me. But it definitely attracted my eye because it looks really well made, but the installation of it apparently is very, very much judgmental, requires judgment from the person doing it. And they make it in white and they make it in black. And in fact, you'll see it's a lot cheaper. And then they have it in this gray as well. So, you know, I was thinking of this AXP90. I did consider it. But I'll tell you, that really drew my eye, just as a really neat looking thing. Whereas these are sort of meant to be unseen. I would have gone with the black one just so it blends in. But would that have cooled this 9600X? I imagine it would have, but I just don't know. And I do not like that installation method where we're screwing it in from the back of the board. But could this cool an i5? Maybe. These are just things we'd have to try and see how they worked out. For the most part, they will cool a CPU when you're just browsing the web. You know, checking email, simple things. But if you're playing a high intensity, like high resource intensive video game, or you're running your, you know, let's say we run Cinebench on it, that's where the real test is how does it perform under load? Because if the CPU is going to throttle under load, it's not good enough for me. So, not that throttling is bad temporarily, but if you're constantly throttling it, you don't have a good cooler on that. It's not a good choice. Or you've installed it wrong, or you've got your fan curve wrong, or you're overclocking or overvolting and your PL1 and PL2 settings are wrong. Like there's a lot of possibilities there. But assuming we checked all that and it still was throttling, then that's how I would determine if that cooler was efficient or not. Or not efficient, but effective for that CPU pairing. I wouldn't know without trying it. But fair question. And he says, wow, less than an hour and done. Oh, I can take things apart. Subaru Mike needs an engine taken apart. I can rip it apart. Putting it back together is a little tricky. But oh, I'm really good at reverse engineering stuff. There's Ron Hillier in the chat room. He says, what about a Noctua NH-L9i? Again, we're looking at a very ugly cooler. The Noctua LH-N9i, NH-L9i. Let's go back over to Amazon here. Noctua NH-L9i. So this is one of the single ugliest coolers. And if anybody makes ugly coolers, nobody makes them uglier than Noctua. And they charge a lot of money for it. And I don't find them to be any better than anybody else's. In fact, I would argue that Thermalright's cooler probably is better at 1/3 the price and looks better. There is a weird sort of cult of Noctua that, is it Noctua, that I don't get it.
I don't understand why people will spend all kinds of money when you could get the same effective or better heatsink and fan that looks more aesthetically pleasing for half the price without the Noctua name on it. The Noctua tax is more than I'm willing to pay. However, I have used some Noctua coolers in the past, and they're great coolers, don't get me wrong. I think they're all massively overpriced by 50%. In my experience, you will pay no less than 50% more for the name Noctua than if you got an equivalent cooler from literally anyone else but them. So that's why I say it's cult-like, in the sense that people, they're so infatuated and enthralled and enraptured by Noctua, they're willing to pay twice as much to have the name. However, this is a cooler we're talking about, this ugly one. And look how much more money this is compared to the Thermalright we just looked at. And you look at the height of it, right? So the Noctua cooler is a little tricky to install, because what you've got to do here, I believe, you have to, you see these mounting points? You either have to screw that in from the back, or you have to screw it in underneath the fan. I'm not sure, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but there may be holes in the heatsink, and you have to take the fan off, and the fan does not clip on. The fan is screwed in, so you got to take the force. It's a pain in the butt, and it's ugly, 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 ugly. But it's very low profile. As you can see here, they talk about the 37 millimeter total height, which is exceptionally low. However, that also means its cooling ability is going to be limited. You're not going to keep a high-end i7 or i9K processor cool with this. It's not going to do it. I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be possible. You know, the laws of physics still apply here. So as good as it is, I think the Thermalright is less than half the price. It gives you a lot more cooler. It's a little bit taller, and the installation isn't any worse than the Noctua. So for me personally, if it's got the name Noctua on it, I know I'm going to pay 50% more. The price is nearly twice. Am I getting twice as good of a cooler? Does it perform twice? You know, what am I trying to say? Does it look better? Does it install easier? And does it perform better? Because when it comes to reliability, that's not a factor with air coolers. It's never been an issue. So someone could say, well, the Noctua fan's better. We reached a point of diminishing returns on fans. You can buy the cheapest fan made on AliExpress, and it'll compare in reliability and performance to this Noctua fan. The Noctua fan maybe will outlast it after so many years, but many people won't even keep a computer long enough for that to even happen regardless. So this whole idea of buying better, I don't think it applies to Noctua. That's my personal opinion. And that's why you don't see their products here very much. I run into so many people that think so long as they, and not run, but I've run into some people that think as long as you buy Noctua, you don't have to think. You don't have to worry about the kinds of problems of other coolers could bring. And then I think, well, why are you building a computer then? If you don't want to think, just buy one pre-built. This idea that if I just buy the most expensive thing, it's the best thing, is sometimes true, but not always. So I don't find today, I don't find any superiority with any Noctua coolers. I only see them as charging twice as much for a product that's not any better. And it's ugly. It's the ugliest cooler on the market. Now, the Noctua Chrome Max coolers, they're all black. And they're fine. I've used them, but I have better choices now than I had back then. So the choices I made back then, I made them because of what the options were at the time. We have more options. And Noctua, the only thing they've got really saving them is the marketing that has people convinced at how great it is. I mean, why did people smoke cigarettes? Why did they stick to a particular brand of cigarettes? Marketing. It's all marketing. So if you choose to, you know, follow along with marketing, I'm not telling you what you're doing is wrong. But it's really important to me that I have my own way to justify to a customer why they should be using that part, why it costs what it does. And if I can get a cheaper part that, isn't going to cost me in warranty or my integrity or reputation, why wouldn't I want to save my customers money? So I need more than marketing because I'm in business and it's a reputation of my work and my cost. So if I go too cheap, people think I build crap. If I go too expensive, fewer people will buy from me. They say he's good, but he's expensive. Similar to like Noctua. I can pretty much guarantee you Thermalright sells 3 to 4 times more coolers than Noctua does. But Noctua doesn't have to sell that many when they're making that kind of money. And so long as Noctua keeps pouring money into the marketing and people keep buying into that nonsense, they will forever hold that position. It's a psychological position. Any differences of superiority are somewhat technically minute. It doesn't matter in consumer-based computers. So anyway, a long answer to your question there, Ron, but not a fan of Noctua. I think if they were more reasonably priced, I could put up with the ugliness. But even then, probably not. Now, back a few years ago, when the competition like Thermalright and Arctic didn't exist, or even Scythe, I've used way more Mugen Scythe Mugen coolers than any other third-party cooler. Never had one come back, not once, for any reason. Not a bad fan, nothing. So when you look at the evidence of it, you go, well, where's the justification for this added cost when the Scythe does as good as or better job than the Mugen, than the Noctua for, in this case, 2/3 of the price. I think today it's probably 60% of the price of the Noctua. Has a larger heat sink and actually cools better, and it looks better. So ask me how I really feel about that. But if you have a small, like a little i3, let's just say a little home theater PC in a really thin case, that may be one of the thinnest coolers you could buy if that's what you're going for, but then forget performance. There's Frankie B joining us. Frankie says hello. Good to see you, Frankie. Welcome in. Bruins44 says hello, along with Wild Soul joining us. Mark Leibowitz said the Silver Reed 8650 typewriter was an unusually colored machine. It's approximately that same beige and light brown. Yeah, well, back then, everything looked like hospital equipment. Mark Leibowitz said the Noctua L9i could look awesome if it were built in a computer reminiscent of my old Silver Reed typewriter. I see. I'm reading it back. I'm going backwards through the thread. Ron says, how about that Thermalright copper cooler with a black fan? Well, now we're not saving any money, are we? Now we're back to just buying the Noctua. The point is, we're not going to be using this case, so it's not a problem anymore. And it was something I didn't realize when I purchased it. Not only did I not realize the ports were on the bottom, I also didn't realize the limitations of the power supply, the limitations of the promoting that whole liquid cooler thing. It was very difficult to get that cooler to fit, even though it was made by G.SKILL. I didn't realize that they photoshopped it in a way that it cannot be installed. I didn't realize they photoshopped the whole picture so there's no cables running to it, and yet somehow it's all lit up. And now that I've noticed it, I'm seeing it on other case manufacturers doing the same thing, where the case is all lit up, but it's empty. Or there's a motherboard in it, or it's photoshopped in there. It's not really there. It's really hard to tell. There's so much dishonesty in marketing now. I am more skeptical than ever. Until I have it in my hands, I can determine how difficult is this to work with? How well does it work? Is it worth the price I paid? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Does it have any shortcomings? Marketing companies, it's their job to keep that information from you. It's their job to omit critical information about the product. That's what they get paid to do. Take something bad, don't talk about it, only focus on the good, and they get paid very, very well for manufacturers to do that. My argument is, if a manufacturer did something right, they wouldn't have to fix it or hide it. So take, for example, the Mugen 5. heat CPU cooler. Scythe never changed the design of that. Take, for example, the screwdriver you see me use. Milwaukee's been making this screwdriver since the 1990s. So when I got my first job working on computers professionally in 1991, this is what they gave me to work with. The only difference is it used to be a smooth tube running on nickel cadmium batteries, and now it's more ergonomic, but it's basically everything's the same, and it's, you know, it's lithium ion. Once you design it right, you don't have to design it again for the next 20 years, and then you're only doing it to keep up with the latest technology. But my Milwaukee screwdriver, I think I still have it at Studio A. Just a cylinder that's red. If you go back to my videos, you'll watch. That's what I was using for a long time. And it was the tool that was handed to me professionally in my first job to use for computer assembly, disassembly. And I was able to buy that same screwdriver 10 years later, and it was still available another 5 or 6 years until the lithium ion version. And I had to have this because the battery lasts so much longer on this. I'm on 2 lights on here, and I think I charged this 3 months ago. Granted, I don't use it every day, but still, the fact that it holds a charge that long. With the old nickel cadmium battery, I could just let this sit on the counter for 3 weeks and go to use it, and it's got very, very little charge left in it. But we would just plug it in every night. We'd take the battery out, plug it in the charger, and it was ready to go for a whole day. We could probably go, I think I was going about a week, 3 days to a week, depending on how busy I was. But I normally just got in a habit at the end of the day to just plug the battery into the charger. So every morning it was ready to go. These days, with the lithium ion batteries, what I do, they only take about 20 minutes to charge, but I always keep a spare one. Like this spare one's been sitting in the drawer. As far as I know, it was charged 6 months ago. It's still four lights light up. It's held the charge in the drawer that entire time. So if there's, I don't usually let it get that low, but if I'm not paying attention, I'm in the middle of a job, it's no big deal, swap it out. And this one can sit on the charger. It'll go in the drawer as the spare. Got to keep working. But if you design a product right, you don't have to keep modifying it and changing it. And, you know, the proof is basically in time. I'm not saying Noctua didn't design their cooler right. I'm saying in the case of Noctua, they're charging too much for it. Way too much. If this Milwaukee driver were $200 instead of $100, I'd say it's a ripoff. It's not worth it. But for $100, are you kidding me? Sign me up. Now, granted, if you need the battery and the charger, you're probably looking at about $150, but still, there's plenty of more expensive drivers out there that are nowhere near as good, from Hitachi, from Panasonic, from no-name brands on Amazon for $30. For what you do at home, maybe a $30 one's all you need. For what I do, you know, I'd much rather have something that matches quality, performance, reliability, and price. So when I'm being critical of a product, I'm telling the manufacturer how they can fix this, and then they don't have to hide anything in the marketing. The marketing gets a lot easier when there's nothing to hide. And once word gets out about how much better the product is, look, this is just easier to install, it's quieter, it lasts just as long, if not longer, it costs half the price, then all you have to do, like in the case of the Mugen, is just include different brackets as the different CPUs come out. And so that's all they did. Revision A, Revision B, Revision C. All that were brackets. That's all it was. Even the Mugen 6 is mostly just the Mugen 5. You know, I don't know what this insistence is on dual fans, on air CPU coolers. Another big fad. That's a big waste of money. Take that second fan off and check your temps. You're going to lose, what, 4 degrees Celsius? Maybe as much as 6, but probably not. Is it worth, let's just take the high end. Is it worth 6 degrees Celsius difference to add a second CPU fan? Which means you have to now have a cooler this big that's now covering up your, potentially covering up your RGB RAM. It's all you're going to see. On a case without a window, great. If you're doing an all blackout, great. But if you want any sort of design element to having a glass, you know, what's the point of the glass? Just go to a steel case. Then you can put a big ugly cooler in there, who cares? But when we talk about the aesthetic of it and we talk about the need for it, it's not needed. I don't think I have ever put a dual fan CPU heatsink on a CPU that required it. That's a mental need, not an actual practical need. And I don't like having the added fan. It's just a stronger vacuum cleaner. It's just going to bring in more dust. And by the way, what about your power supply? How's it cooling? When's the last time you've cleaned it? What temps does your power supply run at? Nobody talks about it. So I guess just like marketing companies, we're going to omit all this critical information about your power supply, which draws air in and out of the power supply only. It does not affect the case at all. Why aren't we talking about it? So when you're getting caught up with all the content creators, all kind of following the same trends, you've got to ask yourself, what are they not telling me? Well, they're not telling you about your power supply cooling. They're not telling you, generally speaking, how important it is that you pay attention to your power supply filters, and that that you monitor your power supply fan to make sure that it's running and air is flowing through it correctly. Instead, they've got everybody infatuated with GPU and CPU heat, which very rarely affects anybody in the real world who isn't overclocking it or hasn't installed it, they've installed it wrong. It's such a weird world to me. And I see it. It's plain as day. It's like people are talking about, look at the neighbor's grass over there, how high it's grown. They're not taking care of the grass. And in the meantime, behind them, the house is on fire, their own house. They're worried about other people's stuff, and yet their stuff is on fire. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And what I'm suggesting is, instead of eating what you're being fed, take a look at what's on the menu. Because just because everybody's all the content creators are all showing the same meal and the importance of these vitamins, what about the other vitamins? What about the other minerals? What about the other benefits or side effects? Where's all that information? If you don't go looking for it, it will never be presented to you. Very unlikely. The algorithm feeds you with what you're clicking on. So if you keep clicking on certain things, you're going to keep getting exactly what you want to see. What I want to see is what it's not showing me. So that's the way my brain works. I see my feed and I go, how come it's not showing me, the other side of this? Well, until I type it into the search, then the algorithm catches on. And then I say, now what's it not showing me? Then I type. So I am my own algorithm, effectively. I control it. Most people don't even realize, just by clicking on videos, depending on how long you stay on them, the algorithm's figuring you out. And if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same info. And if you are omitting voluntarily, you're making this choice, omitting opposing viewpoints or differing viewpoints because you don't agree with them or you never thought to look, then you mistakenly believe you have all the facts because, well, all these content creators can't be wrong. That's not all the content creators. Those are only the ones that the algorithm is showing you that they think you're going to click on. What about the other content creators that you're not seeing? What are they saying? It's food for thought. You're in control of the algorithm, but you've got to do your searching. And then based on what you're searching on, even if it's just for fun, just test the theory. Somebody says this product is great, search this product is bad. See what comes up. Then watch how your feed changes. Now suddenly it's not everybody saying it's great anymore. Welcome to the internet in 2025. What echo chamber would you like to have today? Gregory contributes, that's Gregory Howard, $10 a super chat. I could see you submitting this video to G.SKILL for review. Well, I think that ship has sailed. The reviews that I eventually did pull up on this case after I bought it and started to experience some issues were all published 3 to 4 years ago, and none of them had anything good to say. GSkill got the message. GSkill, as far as I know, has never made a case since, or a cooler. So I think GSkill, rather than fix the problem, just said, not for us. We're in over our head on this, or they don't have the budget for it. Mathematically, you know, on the business side of things, it didn't make sense for them, would be my guess. This shouldn't even be sold anymore. Like I said, it's 3 to 4 years old. I'd never seen it before. All those reviews that all came out 3 years ago, one after the other, I never saw one of them. I've never seen this case. It never was presented in my algorithm. So unless I searched for it, I was never going to see it. Once I did search for it, boom, all these reviews came up, and not a single one has anything good to say. That's when the case was introduced. That's when GSkill would be interested in the review. Now I think GSkill is just looking to dump inventory and be done with it and walk away. I don't think this benefits GSkill, nor was it intended to. This is to benefit you, to know what to watch for. If GSkill wants to pay me, I'd be happy to work as a consultant with them to design a better case. I don't think they want to build cases. I think that this was an experiment. It did not work out for them, and now they just want to forget about it. They obviously made a lot of them, and that's why they're still available for sale today, but I don't think they've made them in years. I believe this was probably made 3 years ago and sitting in a box the whole time. So we're a little late to the party as far as trying to help out GSkill. I think GSkill heard an earful, and based on evidence that they no longer make a cooler or a case, I'm going to say they tried something new, didn't work out, and they're walking away from it. That's what it appears. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Ron says, my apology. No need to apologize. I'm just explaining it thoroughly. Overly thoroughly. Aaron Werner joins us and says, hello, welcome into AA Ron. You done messed up now, AA Ron. All right, we got about a half hour left. If we want to talk about whatever, put it in the chat. I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. While I'm waiting, we'll go over here to YouTube. The YouTube. And I'll type in Z5i, right? Because that's the model of the case. Well, that's pulling up a gun. Let's try not putting guns on the stream. YouTube does not look kindly on that during a live stream. Let's now share with you window capture. And if you look at the date, whoops, didn't want to click on it. Look at the date 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Hey, this guy's good. Cases of fail 3 years ago. It's all the same, all across the board. 4 years ago. Oh, GSkill official 4 years ago. That one's probably saying how great it is. I think that's it. That's pretty much it. So there was content out there, and this work I've done was already basically done. And anyway, just FYI. I'd never seen those reviews. I didn't even know this case existed till I found it on Amazon. I didn't realize it could be that bad. I thought, how bad could it be? Now I know. Okay. How did you become so jaded and negative? Well, because when I'm positive and hopeful, I get let down, I'm disappointed, I waste my time, and I get frustrated. So I'd rather approach it already thinking, how is this going to be a terrible experience, and be surprised when it isn't. And then I'm happy and joyful. Set my expectations really, really low, and then it's a lot harder for me to be disappointed or frustrated. So it's an emotional coping mechanism. Bajan Guy said, what AMD CPUs compare to what Intel CPU? i7 or i9, i3, i5? Basically, Ryzen 3s are like Intel i3s. Ryzen 5s are like Intel i5s. Ryzen 7s are like Intel i7s. And Ryzen 9s are like Intel i9. There's some exception depending on how you're using the CPU. So if you're using the CPU for gaming, you'd say, well, the built-in graphics on AMD are far superior to Intel, and therefore the AMD i5 is better than the Intel i5. But if you're actually working for a living, maybe you're a game creator, somebody who gets paid to game instead of somebody who's paying, you might argue that the Intel processor is better for accomplishing content creation style of work, and the AMD CPU is not as good. And again, comparing i5 to Ryzen 5 and i9 to Ryzen 9. So there is no such thing as what's better. It's like asking me, is a Ford pickup truck better than a Chevy pickup truck? You know, at some point, you have your values and I have mine. And when I drive on the road, it's pretty rare that I see the same car driving next to each other in the same color. Sometimes, but overall, they're all different cars. And yet, that car in that color was what that person bought for whatever their reasons were. And it's highly unlikely that if you walk up to somebody and say, oh, you got one of those Hyundais, yeah, those are terrible, that they might just really be offended. You know, why would you insult me? Like they would take it personally. What are you driving? I drive a Jaguar. All those things break down all the time. They're overpriced. You must have more money than brains. Who's right and who's wrong? So when it comes to determining value, that's really up to each individual. And so depending on how you're using, for example, a car, you know, you might need a minivan, you might need a pickup truck, you might need a sports car, you might need an SUV, you might need a four-wheel drive, you might need an electric, you might need a hybrid, you might need a hatchback, you might need 4 doors, you might need 2 doors. You might want certain color, might have to have a certain color. Wouldn't be surprised if there's an HOA that says you can't have this color. Possible, somewhere. So lots of different reasons. Maybe you're an Uber driver and you need a black car that's 4 doors in order to get Uber X status. You might have to buy that kind of a car. So if it breaks down all the time and you're not able to work as an Uber driver, you might not like that car. On the other hand, you might buy that car and you might have a great experience with it. Which one's better? They're both the same. See what I'm getting at? Thomas MacT says, hey, you got to make a 5-part stream out of this. What's your record for multi-part videos? The record for multi-part is the Big Beast build, because that went 10 parts long. And I mean 2 to 3 hour parts, spread out over at least 2.5 months. And we ran into all kinds of problems. You know, I bought, for example, returned RGB fans, because it has 10 fans right on the front. That gets real expensive. And 60% of the RGB return fans that we bought, somebody swapped out in the box for something that wasn't RGB, wasn't the same manufacturer, and Amazon passed it through to us. Now, Amazon did honor those returns, but it was all wasted time, right? Amazon didn't say just throw it in the trash. Amazon wanted it back. Amazon never questioned that we're not the ones who swapped it. Person before us did. That's Amazon's problem. But Amazon never even insinuated that we were the ones who did it. They just said, take it back to the UPS store, free shipping, we'll give you your money back. And then we had to wait for that, you know, I had to get in the car, drive it over there. And then I ordered new ones from that point on, which cost more money, but I had to get the project done. So yeah, the Big Beast build that Doug Betts uses over on the YouTube channel, Live Windows Training with Doug Betts, you look in the background, that's the Big Beast build. I mean, there's a whole nother part that I could have made just on the cable management that took a couple hours just to, that's a lot of cables. Each fan has 2 wires.
one for power, one for RGB. There's 10 fans in the front, plus there's more fans in the case besides that. Just that cabling, that's 20 cables that all had to be guided and directed and sorted and then zip tied. And then you had all the cables running to one motherboard, all the cables running to the other motherboard, 2 power supplies. It was double everything. It was a fun build though. And then I was really financially in a bad place because that was $10,000. That video series never made back $10,000. It maybe it made back $1,000. So I was $9,000 upside down on that. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. You know, it's not like I'm going to ship it anywhere. It's way too heavy and fragile. And Doug Betts called me and goes, you want to sell it? And I thought, well, I'll tell you what, if you drive out here from California and we can load it in your car. He goes, yeah, I'll come out and pick it up. I said, if you do that, I'll sell it to you for about $1,000 less than it cost me, because that's about what I made from the video. And you're doing me a favor by taking it. I'll do you a favor by reducing the price. He's been happy with it ever since. I've been happy with it. I was able to recover my funds. It was a break-even type thing where basically I didn't get paid for any of my time and labor, but at least it didn't cost me, because I would not be using that computer today. It's too big and impractical for my needs. I thought maybe if I built something so over the top, that video would get a lot more views, kind of like a car review of a Ferrari always does better than a car review of a Chevy. The difference is the people reviewing the Ferraris don't buy them. They're usually just getting them from a marketing company for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks tops. Then they give the car back. Some people do buy the cars, but then they have to have a place to store the cars. And then this gets really, really expensive. So I think Doug DeMuro, you know, bought, Doug DeMuro, or was it one of these guys bought their dream car. I think they may even have leased it. And they did their video review on it. It made more money and was more popular than any other video they ever did. So that car kind of paid for itself. But they're rolling the dice when they do this. That was the person's dream car and they wanted the car. This was just a way to justify it. And it just so happened that video performed really, really well. Then that person goes on to explain that they bought another really high-end car. And that one, those videos aren't doing well. And they just took it in the shorts financially on it. They're going to get rid of the car. And it's really interesting living through people's experiences. But if you have another side business, like Sam Crack does, he'll buy cars at auction, figure out, you know, what's wrong with them, fix them, and then resell them. He's got a whole business doing that. For me, this started off as a business that I'm making videos with, and the videos became the business. And the selling kind of, it still happens, but not like it used to. So for whatever reason, you know, we end up with, you know, 30, 40, 50 built computers here that we start running out of room. Where do we put them? And that's still a struggle I have today with regards to these machines. A lot of them are way too expensive and fragile to ship them. That's why the mini PCs are so much better. We can ship those all day long, no big deal. But on the other hand, it's also no big deal for you to just go buy one. There's no customization from Carey on it, you know. A lot of these builds we have here, they're all one of a kind. They're all unique. And I'm very proud of them. So I don't want to just give them away. And I can't really afford to give them away. I can sell them at a loss so long as I'm getting more money in so I can buy more things to make more videos. I'm okay with that. I don't see there any sort of bad side of business there. Somebody can get something for less money than new. I built it. I lose money on it. Or I just keep it here and it collects dust. or you do the build, you take all the parts out of it, throw the case in the garbage, and then buy another case and do the build all over again. And you don't even have to use all the same parts. I could use the power supply from this build and the motherboard from that build, right? I could just keep recycling the boards and CPUs, but I don't do that. I'm always buying, for the most part, these are all new parts. And then they end up just sitting because I don't want to undo all my work. Because then when you figure out how much the videos are paying, I probably make $100 on a video. So I've got to release a lot of videos, a lot of them. And I'm talking $100 after maybe 30 to 60 days per video when the video's new. Once that video is more than, say, 60 days old, that video will probably earn about $2 a month from that point forward. At that point, once it reaches a year old, I put it into the archive because what's it going to cost me, $2? And what that does is it prevents people from pulling up old information mistakenly because they don't realize they're watching a how-to video from 10 years ago that doesn't apply, and it's causing more harm than good. Or they're going, how did you get that at that price? Because they're not paying attention to the date the video was made. This is what happens when you're just making videos for the world. You've got a lot of people who just don't understand what they're watching. So I said, okay, what I'll do to solve all these problems is we're going to take all these videos that are more than 12 months old. It's sort of like you squeezed a lemon, you get all the lemon juice out of it, and if you keep squeezing, you get a couple more drips, but it starts to hurt your hands, and for all the effort, you're getting very little in return. Then you just throw it out. You go, okay, that's done, taking the next one. And then what that does, it gives me an archive that I can promote as a benefit of membership for people who do want to go back historically, even though you can't buy those parts anymore, but they might feel nostalgia or they might just be interested for one reason or another. And that pays me better because of memberships than YouTube would pay me the $2, to leave it up. So economically, we're in such a tight spot here to do this. I'm doing everything I can to squeeze out every drop. But at the same time, when I'm putting more effort into the squeezing than what I'm getting back out, that's not working anymore. That's not sustainable. I can't keep it up. What'll happen is the channel will shut down. Then there won't be any videos for anybody. So these are the challenges I face without going to a traditional sponsorship. With a traditional sponsorship, I'd be here showing you, let's say G.SKILL paid for this video. You wouldn't hear these criticisms. You might hear some mild criticism, but I don't want to prevent getting paid. And G.SKILL would tell me I'm not allowed to, say certain things, or the way I say it, they'd have to approve it before I could show it to you. And if I don't do that, they won't pay me. And if they don't pay me, they won't work with me again. I don't want to play the game. So we buy the case using the money that comes from our viewers who appreciate the content. And if it turns out great, great. If it turns out bad, so be it. But if I knew ahead of time it was going to be bad, I wouldn't have bothered. So I always think when I'm making the purchase, this should make for a good video, but I'm always prepared to be surprised. Yeah. And we have an email. All right. So again, we have a few minutes left here. If you have any questions, this is a time to ask. And Dustin Fuller with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Dustin. It looks like, what do we have? Mark Gaines says it just arrived today. Oh, there must be an attachment here. Oh, he's got his IQ Link Titan 360 RX LED liquid cooler. Well, I mean, it doesn't really look any different than other IQ 360 coolers, but the important thing isn't what I think. What do you think? Because he's got that Trix cooler now. And I like the Trix cooler, but I don't dislike the Corsair IQ either. Mark also sends us a $50 Amazon gift card. He says, I hope you enjoy the gift card. I got my Corsair IQ Link Titan all-in-one today. Well, let us know how it goes. Let us know how the install is. Mark has a lot of other, he's got like some other Corsair IQ products, and he's running into issues with all these different fan controllers. So the Trix has its own controller, IQ has its own controller, and he's like, this is really messy cabling. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is Mark is basically saying, look, if I just went with an IQ cooler, I'll pull the Trix cooler out, then I can use the fan controller I already have. This significantly minimizes the cable management mess and difficulty in cramming all these cables into my case. And at the same time, it's going to look fantastic. So, if you can afford to do that, they're both expensive coolers. So to buy one of them is one thing. To buy one Trix and one Titan, you're looking at about $700 US. And then sales tax on top of that. And then what do you do with the other cooler? Like, you've got this really nice flagship cooler.
that's running fine. He doesn't have any problems with it. It's just a cable management. And if he wants to synchronize the RGB, then how do you synchronize the IQ to the trikes? They don't synchronize. You could use a program like Signal RGB, but that's going to cost you more money. And Mark just thought, wouldn't this just be a lot easier? I could just use the IQ software, just use the IQ controller, not have all the extra cabling, not have the extra controller, declutter my case, and have it still look fantastic. And I believe that's what the impetus is for Mark's decision to purchase that. So there's another great learning experience with regards to getting wrapped up with the aesthetic, but the practicality of using it gets to be nightmarish. Mark Gaines contributes £5 there in Super Chat. Carey, he says, you have mail. Bajan Guy said, did you do a walkthrough using Syncovery? I did. I believe we did that on Monday's show. Did you join us on Monday's members only show? I can't remember if you were there or not. I think we did that on, was it this? Yeah, I think it was last Monday, wasn't it? If not, it was the Monday before. Pretty sure it was last Monday. Mark Leibowitz said, Carey, I just used that line with a client. He asked which was better, HP or Lenovo. I answered, I don't know, which is better, Ford or Chevy? Which is better, Nike or Adidas or Reebok or Hoka? Which is better? Go to a restaurant, look at the menu. Which item on the menu is better? Which tattoo is best? Which haircut is best? Which way should I part my hair? People are looking for, I guess they're lacking confidence and they have self-doubt. And unfortunately, the only way that you can resolve the self-doubt and self-confidence issues is to do it. Make a decision and move forward. Take the first step. When somebody says, how do I get from here to there? It's really far away. It doesn't matter. You start with the same first two steps, whether you're walking into the kitchen or you're walking 10 miles. You're going to take the first two steps. And until you get off your butt and take those steps, then nobody can give you anything helpful as far as any information goes. And then when you want to share that experience with other people, that's really helpful, so people can then take from that what aligns with their values, but not necessarily will you ever find two people whose values always align. You are uniquely you, and we encourage that. We don't want you to become a drone or a robot. And if you're having these kind of decision-making processes, flip a coin. If you can't decide, then let the law of mathematics resolve it for you. Because no matter how much somebody reassures you that Lenovo is better or HP is better, that doesn't mean your experience is going to be any different. One way or another, you're making a decision, and one way or another, you're going to face a reality that has nothing to do with what anybody told you, including the salesman or your best friend or a coworker. None of that applies to reality. Only your experience applies to you in reality. So make a decision. If you like it, buy more. If you don't like it, never buy it again. That's it. How can I live my life without having any personal experiences? Oh, just wait. All of your ability to make any decisions will end when you no longer exist, and then you won't feel any of the stress. All the problems go away. Is that what you want? You're alive. Start living. It seems pretty obvious to me. This isn't like a last meal. It's not like a one-time purchase. You usually have 30 days to return things you don't like. How do I know? How does anybody know if you're going to like something you've never had before? It's only a decision you can make, and you can't make it until you have something to base it on, which is experience. So this is a frustration people in our industry face. People go to a restaurant and they ask the waiter, what's the best item on the menu? And that waiter might say, well, my personal favorites are this, this, and this. And they might be naming things you don't eat. I really like the goat cheese enchiladas. Okay, thanks. Somebody else might go, oh, the goat cheese enchilada sounds pretty good. I think I'll try it. Or another server walks up to you and says, have you been helped? You're like, what's the best item on the menu? What do you think the second server is going to say? The same thing the first server said? Probably not. Although there are restaurants where the servers are told exactly how to answer that to whatever product they're trying to move that day. So even then, they're not being honest. And it still means that until you taste it, you don't know if you like it or not. So you might as well flip a coin. Thomas MacT says, by the way, hello to my Florida friend, Frank Jimmy. Bajin Guy says, I'll check Monday's show. Yeah, please do. The Monday shows are our member-only shows. And those are shows that we get into some depth on things where I don't have to be so protective about, trolls and whatnot, trying to get in, know too much about the inner workings of what's going on over here. So they're a lot more informal, and, I can show some networking settings and things here that, could jeopardize security. But I know there's nobody paying the $10 a month to harass me. Those people are cheap. They don't spend any money. So it solves the problem. And that way we can open up a little bit more and show a little bit more than we do on public videos, because I know the members are friends and they won't do anything to cause any harm. So we're thinking about maybe we do a little road trip and we do a show on the road. And I'm still kind of figuring this out in my head with regards to cost. And, here in the US, if we were to take a drive and then maybe do some meetups along the way, I can't imagine the meetups would be that popular. But we might have to limit it to members only in order to avoid any trolls trying to, like, if they know we're going somewhere, that they call ahead and say, hey, there's a murderer coming to town. Then we get there and cops are waiting for us. We're like, what are you here for? Yeah, somebody reported you. So that's part of the downside of posting publicly, is there's people with nothing else better to do, that they find that to be a form of entertainment. So if we do this, it'll probably be only disclosed in members only, and then the meetups will be members only, which means they'll be small, maybe meet at a restaurant, something like that. So let me know what you think of that idea. We would probably have a bigger turnout if we posted it publicly, but then by doing that, it also opens it up to the trolls' entertainment. And I don't mind entertaining the trolls if they want to pay for it, but I'm not going to do it for free. I don't mind babysitting when I'm paid to babysit, but somebody else can babysit those trolls. I got other things to do. Mark Leibowitz said, I never ask a server what's the best item on the menu. I might ask what they recommend, and I might or might not order it, but the conversation is usually enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, for conversation, sure. The reason I don't engage in that is I know the server has other work to do. So when they're done taking my order, they've got to go help somebody else. They've got more tables to wait on, and all those other tables are waiting the longer I engage with the server. Now, if it's an empty place and I'm the only one there, different story. But usually when I go out to eat, the place is busy. So I'm polite, but I'm business, right? How can I help you? Well, I want this, I want this, I want this. If I don't know what I want, I'm going to save you the effort. Give me a few more minutes, please. They come back. You ready to order? Yes, I am. They usually can tell if you're ready to order if your menu is closed and sitting on the table. If your menu is open and you're still reading it, the server should know you haven't decided yet. But they can still ask, are you ready? You have some questions about items. Does this come with this, or what's on that? For sure, legitimate. But I'm not there to say, wow, it's really hot out today, isn't it? And in the meantime, there's a table over here waiting for their drinks to get refilled, and we're selfishly tying up the server's time. So if it's quick and it's business, that's what I'm about. And polite. I'm always trying to be polite and be courteous of these other people. There's other people they have to help. Andy says, ask, in your experience, what do you think is best? Again, what difference does it make? Who cares? At the end of the day, what I have found with most people is they're just curious and have no intention to buy. So they will just talk your ear off and ask you a million questions, make no purchase, and have no consideration of the value of your time. Let's cut to the gist of it, which is basically, what's your budget and what do you want the computer to do? Let's stop playing games and let's talk about how much money do you have to spend on this project and what is it you need the computer to do? Well, I need the computer to hook up to 3 monitors. I need it to have 2.5 gig Ethernet. No, we got the order wrong. Tell me first, I guess it doesn't matter, and exactly how much do you have to spend? I have $150 to spend. Oh, well, I'm glad we got to that point first, because you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. Have you considered buying something used? Have you considered tripling your budget? I can shorten these conversations down. I had somebody call me one time. I don't know who they were, and I don't even know if it was a real phone call. But I was driving, and I was talking with somebody. I said, can I put you on hold? So now I'm doing 3 things. I'm driving the car. I'm on a speakerphone. I say, hold on a second, I got a call coming in. How can I help you? And this person starts asking me about a computer build that doesn't make any sense. I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. What you're talking about are 2 different things. He says, oh, I'm just kidding with you. I go, look, I don't want to be rude, but I don't have time to kid around. If I can help you, I'll be happy to help you. However, I have somebody else on hold, and I'm driving the car right now. So what is it that you actually want? And they said, well, that's a hell of a way to treat a customer. I said, you're not my customer. I don't know who you are, and I don't have time for this. So is there something I can help you with or not? And they said something like, well, it was just a joke. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry, I don't have time for this today. Have a nice day. And I hung up on them. I still felt like I was polite. I did say, have a nice day. Never heard from that person again. For all I know, it was a prank call. No genuine customer talks to me like that as a first, they don't even know me. You're going to start off, rattling off stuff because you think it's funny. Don't you know I got other things going on? So, and then to say he's a customer, you're not a customer. You haven't bought anything from me. You become a customer when we've engaged in a transaction. There's no transaction here. You expected me to kiss your butt? Customer's always right. We'll be a customer. Let's start with that. Then you can be right, okay? But not out of the gate. I don't know who you are. So if it was a prank call, it was the shortest prank call ever because I stopped it. Like, that's it. The other concern is I had a real customer on the other line and on hold, and I didn't want them to wait so long that they hung up on, and then it felt like I forgot them. And now I'm being disrespectful to them, so that I'm not disrespectful for a stranger who I've never engaged with, who's clearly not being disrespectful to me, but demanding I should be respectful to them. Nope. Ain't nobody got time for that. So when you get under this pressure, right, as the only employee, and things tend to all happen at once or they don't happen at all. And I'm sure Mark Leibowitz can attest to, there are times when business is really slow. And somebody will call me up and we'll be on the phone 2 hours because they just picked a good time. I had nothing else going on. And, nice chatting and I enjoy it. But sometimes they call it a terrible time and they have 2 hours to talk. I don't. So let's get to it. And people say, well, that's rude. It's not rude. I'm not being polite. It's a business. I'm trying to run a business. So Thomas MacT said, I'll welcome you and Mara to St. Petersburg, Florida. We do have a lot of viewers in Florida. I think we'd have if we did a meet and greet in Florida, we'd have a pretty good turnout. And if we were to go on a road trip, I do think the East Coast is where we would end up, because we'd like to see Todd Tuckey there in Pennsylvania with TNT Amusements. I've never been to Maine or New Hampshire or Vermont, Rhode Island or Connecticut. I've never done the whole Appalachian Trail. I've been to Florida and Georgia and Alabama and Arkansas and Tennessee, but for whatever reason, even West Virginia, North and South Carolina, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, I've been all that. But that whole top right side, I've never been to. And that's a long drive. Hotel rooms alone will probably be $2,000. Just day after day after day after day. 5 days to get there, 5 days to get back. It's probably $150, $200 a night for a hotel. But if we can put it together, it might be fun. Mark Leibowitz said, I'm 100% with you on that situation. I'll end a call as quickly and politely as possible, but I cannot spend hours on the phone with a non-client when paying clients are waiting. The issue is, it always starts with, I just have a quick question. And they do. They have a quick question. The problem is when you give them an answer, they have questions about the answer. And when you answer that one, they have questions about that answer. And when you answer that one, you see where I'm going? So this quick question is 35 minutes, an hour long. And it's no longer a quick question. They fail to see, and it's, I'm just going to take a step. What are you going to do after that? I'm going to take another step. And then after that, just a quick step. And after that, just another little quick step. Well, after about 30, 40 steps, you're going to be in a whole nother room. Why didn't we start there? How do I get to the kitchen? Okay. So it kind of comes across like, I know this is an easy question for you to answer. That's why I'm calling you. I know you know your stuff. I respect your knowledge. And I know this will be no big deal for you to answer it. So here's my question. And as soon as you give them the answer, boom, follow-up question. And around the wheel goes indefinitely until you finally say, at this point, maybe you need a service call. Maybe this isn't something you should be doing. So how much of that do you tolerate? How many times does this one question, do you let it go to 5 questions? 6, 10, 15, 20? At some point, you have to cut it off because no bills are getting paid and no work is being done. If it's a support question to a customer who's having a problem, different story. But even then, I might recommend, let me connect to it remotely, or let me get in the car and get over there because this is too slow and painful to do it this way. Or if it's something simple, the computer won't turn on. Well, unplug it and plug it back in. Thank you. Have a nice day. That's a quick question. Ron says, if I get to Tennessee, I need to stop and see Ed. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Ed was the manager of the Radio Shack that both Ron and I worked at in 1982, 84. No, for me, it would have been 86 because I would have been 18. So 86 for me. You had to be 18 years old to work at Radio Shack. But Ed was there when I was hanging out. When I was hanging out, I wasn't an employee. I just voluntarily hung out there all day. He's a fun guy. All right, let's scroll around here, see if there's any other. John Lewis says, I start out most of my calls with, am I taking you away from anything important? That's nice when people do that. And John, of course, is watching this from Brazil, where apparently they're more courteous. Maybe it's just John, or maybe it's just the culture of Brazil. I don't know. The culture in the USA is it's all about me, in my bubble. More so than not. It's not. It's just overwhelming, so much bubble life here. Or maybe it's just being in Phoenix. That could be the other thing. I do find that people are much more courteous when I go back to Michigan, for sure. Bruins44 says, thank you, Carey and Mara, for another great show. Well, thank you, Bruins44. We look forward to the build on Friday because, like I said, what we'll do, here's the plan. I hope to have all the parts. The one part that I'm most concerned about is the CPU. And without the CPU, whole thing's kind of gonna have to wait. But assuming we get the CPU on time, then we'll start the rebuild process in the new thermal case. And once all that's done, that will become the new streaming computer from that point forward. That's the plan. And then we'll take the red and black streamer and we'll strip it down a little bit. Like we can take the capture card out, I can take the U.2 card out, clean it up, maybe do a wipe and a reinstall on the OS, put it up for sale. Then we can take the money from the sale of that, put that into another project. How's Mitch doing? Mitch is doing really good. Yeah. Hopefully, that's today, the 13th. Maybe the last Friday of the month, if possible, we'll see if we get Mitch back. That would be the soonest. So we'll see how it goes. Thomas MacT said, Northeastern U.S. is a beautiful fall visit. Oh, I know. I would love to drive through Vermont in the fall. Like I say, there's the whole Appalachian Trail that I could drive, which I think would be an amazing road trip. Gregory Howard says, can I be first? Bring a van with you. I'll tell you what, I'll bet you if we had a minivan or something that we rented and I loaded up a bunch of these computers here in the studio, I bet you in Florida, those computers would sell out in 2 hours. It seems like everybody who wants to buy them, everybody lives on the East Coast where it's really expensive to ship it. And, you know, any amount of money I'm losing, once you add the money onto the cost of shipping it, the risk of damage and the difficulty in future support, it rarely makes any sense to do that. But if I loaded it in the car and I personally brought it over there, then the worst thing that would happen is we're staying in some sketchy hotel and someone breaks into the minivan and steals it all. On the other hand, it solves the problem for me one way or the other. Well, that's somebody else's problem. I had an old beat-up minivan for a while at Studio B. And my gosh, that thing was useful. Man, I was hauling everything. I didn't care that it was ugly, beat-down Dodge Caravan. I didn't care if anybody swung their door into it. I didn't even notice. I didn't care if the oil got changed on time. It was so nice to have a car I didn't give a rat's behind about. And then I could take the rear seats out, and I had all this space to haul things like the big Apache helicopter build. It's amazing that I was able to move that. And the minivan swallowed it up like it was nothing. Transported it 100% safe. And boy, that was an ugly car. And it was falling apart. But it always ran. It always ran. And so there's that part of me that I'll leave the nice Mustang at home and I'll take the minivan. And I ended up probably driving the minivan 10 times to every one time I drove the Mustang. I don't care, you know, things in the Mustang, if the computer slides around in the trunk and starts scratching things up, put it in the minivan, you can actually strap it down in there and you don't even notice anything's in there. You know what I mean? Like the capacity of it was immense. I'm moving shelving units, all kinds of stuff. I was a moving fool. But then the insurance and the registration got to be too much money, and I said, yeah, just get rid of it. Ron Hillier wants to know, has anybody seen Superman yet? It doesn't look good to me. I mean, I've seen the trailers. It's not my Superman. I miss Henry Cavill. There's some talk that maybe Henry Cavill could be the next James Bond, which I'm hopeful. But this new guy and James Gunn, it looks very cartoony. In every scene, Superman's getting his butt kicked, which, you know, when does that ever happen? But I haven't seen it, so maybe I'm wrong, but it looks absolutely terrible to me. Greg Jimmy said on APD, I picked up the TP-Link, Amazon Prime Day. I picked up the TP-Link Deco XE75, which is an AXE 5400 tri-band Wi-Fi 6E mesh for 200 bucks. I've been too busy to set it up, but I'm very eager to get it going. Yeah, let us know what you think about it. I like the TP-Link routers. I've got 4 or 5 of them here, so it should be pretty obvious. There are more expensive routers, but I don't know that there's a better router for the money, or any router, than what TP-Link offers. You know, meaning if it's a mesh or if it's just a regular router. Remember when everybody was talking about how Congress was going to punish TP-Link or make it illegal to own the routers? Notice how that story quietly went away and no one's talking about it anymore, just like I said they would. Does anybody remember any of this? Mark Gaines says, Carey, I already sold my Trex cooler. Oh, that's right. You mentioned you took it off and you're selling it, so that's good. You say the person he sold it to is picking it up on Tuesday. There you go. Yeah, if you can offload it, good on you. I mean, I don't know how much of a loss you took on it, but I'm assuming you had to make the price pretty appealing to make it worthwhile for somebody to come pick it up. Mark Leibowitz said, I have a 2004 Toyota Sienna minivan, rock solid, reliable, hauls just about anything I need. My wife usually drives it, but we switch cars if we need it. Man, I'll tell you what, I would make fun of people with minivans till I had one. And I'm like, this is the most practical car I've ever owned. It's easy to get in and out of. You're not climbing in and out of it like an SUV. It's got enough road clearance where when I park it, I'm not worried about hitting a curb or, you know, damaging the underside of the front of the car. And you're talking about a nice one, a Sienna. And the one I had was just a crappy old Dodge Caravan with 200,000 miles. And that thing just ran. Little teeny tiny underpowered four-cylinder engine with underpowered horsepower. I'm not looking to race. I don't care. Back would swing open and you could load it full of stuff. I could go to Costco and get these, 8-foot-long shelving units and just swallow them whole and close the lid. I couldn't do that in any SUV. It'd be hanging out the back. And SUVs are pretty nice on the inside. This minivan, this had like children in it, so it had stains and stuff on the carpet from cereal and spilled milk and all this other stuff. Cleaned it up as best I could, got all that crap out of there. It wasn't terrible. AC didn't work worth a darn, but you know what? That's fine. It was like being 16, driving an old jalopy because it's all I could afford. And now I was in my 50s doing it because that's what I wanted. I'm like, hey, this is fantastic. If it was a stick shift, it would have been even better. You can keep all your luxury nonsense. Bajan Guy says, tell Mitch we all say hello. Well, Mitch will probably see that himself, but I'll let him know when I talk to him. Greg Jimmy said he got several service calls today on a Sunday. Customers were very appreciative as I'm one of the very few computer repair businesses in my area that are open on Sunday. Well, clearly you don't work at Chick-fil-A. All right, I think that'll wrap it up for today. It's a little after 3 o'clock here, about 20 after. Andy says we'd like to see Matt again. He's a very intelligent and well-spoken young man. I agree. I'd love to talk to Matt again.
what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to play favorites here. So we had Matt on, we brought Doug on, Doug Betts, and I'd like to bring on Scott, Ask Your Computer guy, Scott Merrill. I'd like to bring him on, and then go back to Matt and Doug, and maybe once a month. That'd be great if they're willing to join us, because I'm not paying them anything, but they do get the exposure. And I really, it's a selfish thing. I want to talk to these folks. I like talking to Scott. I like talking to Doug. I like talking to Matt. They each bring a different perspective. They live in different parts of the country. So with that comes sort of a different cultural attitude than what I have here in Phoenix. And that's a part of it, right, is the culture. And then there's the tech skill and how well it's explained. And I'm impressed by all of their content. Doug Betts' content, Scott, Ask Your Computer guy, his content's fantastic. And Matt just cranking out these short videos. Boom, boom, boom. He's cranking out like 4 new short videos every single day. I don't know where he's got the energy and the time, but I certainly enjoy watching the fruits of his labor, because he's very, very good, as they all are. But none of us are doing the short videos like that. Like, that's insane. It's a very, very time-consuming process to make a tiny video. And for that tiny video to convey any useful information like you would learn you're not really learning much. You're sort of getting problem solution without much explanation, because you can't do that in 3 minutes. But it might be, for me, it's well enough because of what I already know. It's already building on what I know. And I'm not doing it to police his videos. I'm simply evaluating what would I do in that scenario. So I don't need the breakdown. And in most cases, even with Matt, with Scott, and with Doug, we mostly do the same thing, the same approach. But when we don't, that's where things get interesting for me. Because I might be like, what better way is there than my way? And they'll tell me their way, and I'll be like, no, that's not better. But they feel otherwise. I love that. I love that. It gives you, the audience, both sides, maybe 3 sides, and then you can align to whatever side you can relate with the most. It's no longer about which way is the best way. It's about your perspective and your preference. So computer repair has gone from being right way, wrong way to multiple right ways. And now it's all about preferences. And therefore, preferences aren't right or wrong. That's why it's fascinating to me. So even when we go about things differently, to me, that makes it even more appealing to have them on. Because I don't need to preach to a choir. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Dustin Fuller says, great show as always, Carey. Thank you, Dustin. Andy says that rotation sounds great. Well, we've been rotating Doug and Scott a couple of months. And we did fork out the $500 for a 1-year StreamYard subscription, which I need to have to really do these interviews. And that's pretty much the only time I use it. So I definitely want to get my $500 worth. Otherwise, I paid for a year for nothing. So if you have other ideas for who to bring on as guests, all I can say is they must be in the industry. They can't be hobbyists or enthusiasts. I need people that are professionals. They get paid to do the work they show on camera. And if I'm missing anybody, I sure would love to know about it. All right. Thank you to Mara, as always, for all the work she does in the background, doing all of our administrative work. If you guys ever want to reach out to us, we love hearing from you. Our email address is right here. So if you want to write to us, send us your pictures of your build, or say hello, ask questions, want a computer built or buy one, we handle all that privately through our email. If you're looking for help in the community, use our forums. There's a link to our forums in the video notes below. It's CareyHolzman.boards.net. And finally,
I have to give a shout out to our friends at SCD Keys. It's because of them I am able to provide my customers with legal Windows and Office licenses without paying the exorbitant fee Microsoft wants or risk getting ripped off by some key seller online. So I've done all the research so you don't have to. They're a real legit company that's been around nearly 2 decades. This is what they do. This is what they've been doing. And you can get an additional 30% off their pricing by using the coupon code Carey. When I need to buy a license, like when I buy a license for the build, I go to SCD Keys. I use my coupon. It's weird to put my own name in to get a discount. But this is the price I'm paying. This is where I'm buying it. How many restaurants will show you where they're getting their food from? Not too many shops will disclose this information. So there you go. That meets all of the requirements for me legally. And I don't have to worry about my clients, you know, having any sort of licensing issues, especially when many of my clients are attorneys. They would not be shy about taking me to court. That's what they do for a living. It's another day at the office. I don't want to give them any reason to do that. In fact, I'm not in business to be in court. I'm in business to fix computers and provide service with regards to computers. And I would pretty much like to do that forever, as long as I can. The last thing I want to do is try and earn a few extra bucks, rip somebody off, have that person come after me financially, legally, hold me accountable and put me out of business and maybe even lose my house. So this is not a joke. Like, this is a very serious issue. And finding SCD keys was not easy. I went through a lot of different companies and found a lot of issues with everybody but them. I stopped looking. In other words, I went through company after company after company. I kept getting burned and wasting money, trying to save money and testing it out, making sure I could legally sell this. And it wasn't until I hit SCD Key that I realized I don't need to look anymore. So if anything happens between us and SCD Key, I got to start all over again, which I don't want to do. Okay, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of back checking and a lot of testing, and I want that to pay off for me. That's an investment so that I can just keep going there and getting the keys I need and have some proper expectation of what to expect. And they have 6 months of support, which a lot of folks don't that sell keys online. Or they might say they do, but they don't actually. So I can't recommend them highly enough, and we certainly appreciate them extending the offer to all of you, because that's the only place you're going to see this offer is here. No one else is using the coupon code Carey. All right, 30% off. There you go. All the links if you're interested in getting a copy of Windows or Office. When you make the purchase, they will send you an email detailing how you get the software from Microsoft, not anybody else, and then how you activate it with their key. And you can check with Microsoft. If you still have any doubts, you can verify that's a real authentic key, and it's not an enterprise key. It's not one of those things. It's an OEM key, just like Dell and HP use. So just so you know, it's all on the up and up, and I've done all the research. So that's all I can do for you. Whether or not you choose to take advantage of it's on you. You want to roll the dice somewhere else or pay more somewhere else? I'm not telling you not to. Craig Casabona with a $20 super chat right there in the end of the stream. Right on. Thank you, Craig. I want to shout out a thank you to those Amazon gift cards we got today. So, of course, our friend Buster out there in Scotland, and Ben Laird and Mark Gaines. Thank you guys for your contributions. And super chats. I was forgetting. Thank you, Craig Casabona, Mark Gaines, Dustin Fuller for your super chats, along with Gregory Howard. Oh, I missed Planet Cryos. I just saw that now from an hour and a half ago. Thank you, Planet Cryos. Gregory Howard renewed membership. Jose Lopez, I think I missed yours as well. Thank you for your super chat. And Dwayne Blackwelder, thank you for renewing your membership. And I think I got everybody. Hope I did. Thank you all for being members and making these videos possible. It's with your support that we're able to independently purchase and review products that we want to review, that we can say honestly and transparently how we feel about the product, for better or for worse, and hopefully a little of both. And so long as we're able to get your support, we can I'm willing if you are. And for everybody who is unable to chat with us live, support us. It's a benefit of membership to interact with me while I'm live. Without the members, you would not have a video to watch, let alone interact with. So certainly hope that the viewers watching the video for free who don't support us understand that it's all the members, all those people in the live chat that are paying for the content. I'm not getting paid by that. The money goes into product, and then the money I will generate to earn a living, that basically comes out of promotional, like Amazon links and revenue from YouTube that is above and beyond the membership money. The membership money does absolutely go to some of these expenses, by the way, but most of it goes in so we can purchase products. So with that, that'll wrap up the video. Again, I cannot do this without your help, and for those helping, I cannot thank you enough. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. So on behalf of Mara and myself, thank you for watching. We'll see you all, well, we'll see the members only on tomorrow's show, as always, where we always have a little special stuff cooked up for you. I hope you'll join us then. Until next time, bye for now.